A very wonderful afternoon to you out there. You're still tuned into independent television and radio here in Benin City. The program is Hitches and Voices. Hitches and Voices comes to you courtesy of Network for the Advancement of People with Visible Disability. And if you have been following us on this program, we have continuously said that we will and continuously talk about the Edo State Disability Law. And this segment of the program where we talk about the Edo State Disability Law is sponsored by the Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, JONAPID, with support from the Ford Foundation. Our topic for discuss today, it's a very wonderful topic, something that a lot of persons would find interesting. And we have a very wonderful guest with us in the studio today, someone that is a friend to the disability community, and she owns every right to talk on disability issue because that is an area of study for her. I'm talking about Dr. Awele Ofwani. She is a lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of Benin. Doc, you're welcome to today's edition of Hitches and Voices.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, lest I forget, my name is Kingsley Okoje, your regular anchor on the program. Prof, before I ask my first... oh, sorry, that's a promotion.
Thank you.
Before I ask my first question, I would like to say that there was a time where persons with disability experienced dark days where they were annihilated. If you had a child with disability in the Roman and the Greek era, that child is killed because that child was not fit for purpose. And we moved to an area where disability was seen as an illness, as a sickness, as a disease, and as a result, it needed to be cured, it needed to be fixed, and that brought about the medical model. But the disability community argued that that is not the solution to the issues of disability, and that brought about some sort of model that was called the charity model, where persons with disability were pitied and shown some level of benevolence. But the community of persons with disability still argued that that is not how you resolve the issues of disability. And they say disability is a social issue, it's an issue created by society, and such that brought about the social model. But they've pushed the argument further that disability is a human rights issue. And that brings us to our topic of today, disability. Disability rights is human right. How true is this? Why is disability rights human right? Is disability not a matter of showing us love, giving us care, putting us in a center where they take care of us? That has been the way society has treated issues surrounding disability. But our guest today is here to tell us why disability rights is human right. And how does the Edo State Disability Law, how does it relate, how does it connect with human rights? That's our first question for our guest today.
How does it? Okay, so like you rightly said, disability rights is human rights. I mean,
why so?
Persons with disabilities is a very simple answer. Persons with disabilities are human beings. And so by virtue of they are being human beings, they should be accorded their human rights. Their human rights should be respected. But because of all the discriminatory attitude, stigma surrounding disability, laws have been made both at the international level, the national level, and of course at the state level, our state, Edo State. And these laws, have codified disability rights as human rights. They recognize persons with disabilities as right holders, and as such, they should be treated on the same basis as other persons. That's what the rights, these laws emphasize, that persons with disabilities are like every other person, and they should be treated with, on the same basis, or they should be treated, be placed on the same place as other people. And so when you look at the Edo, can I go to the Edo State Law? When you look at the Edo State Law, there are some salient provisions in the Edo State Law which are also mirrored in the national law and international law. But Edo State Law, Section 5 of the Edo State Law prohibits discrimination against persons with disabilities. And that law is very salient in the sense that we have talked about the over time, how persons with disabilities have been treated. So it prohibits discrimination in all aspects of life. And what I find interesting about the law is it penalizes persons who don't adhere to the law. So assuming a corporate body discriminates against a person with disability, that person will be fined 250,000 naira. And then if it's an individual, that person will be fined 100,000 naira or subject to imprisonment for 6 months, or even a combination of both penalties can be meted out on that person. So it just shows you that our laws have gone beyond charity model, even social model, to see disability as an issue that ought to be used to promote the dignity of persons with disabilities. It promotes equality. It promotes, and this translates to promotes equality. It promotes the right to human dignity, and it permeates throughout the Edo State disability law. For instance, when it comes to education, the law prohibits discrimination in education, segregation in education. So it kind of, in some way, it recognizes inclusive education. It also provides for free education for persons with disabilities. So which also is linked to non-discrimination, because it says that every person with disability has a right to education. So that means they should not be discriminated when it comes to their right to education. Same thing goes for right to work. After they have gone through education, they should also be afforded the opportunity to work. They should not be discriminated because of their disability. Same thing goes for rights to health. They should not be treated differently because, in the health institutions, because they are disabled. And then when we talk about right to dignity, because when we are talking about equality, equality is linked to treating persons with everybody with dignity. And so it prohibits harmful traditional or cultural practices. One example I can give is ritual killing. You know that in some climes, it is believed that when you kill a person with disability, it brings money. So that is one of the things that the law prohibits. The law also, that's in Section 6. Section 7 of the law also goes further to prevent the use of persons with disability for alms begging. You know that in our culture, that is very common.
That's quite common,
Very, very common. Sometimes you see people with drums and I'm trying to look at that native calabash with beads, and they are begging. So the law is very, very clear. Any form of alms begging, whether you are using it for pity, you are using them to sing, you are using them, to beg, whatever it is, that at the end of the day you are using it to solicit for charity, has been prohibited. So you just see that the law, and it goes on and on.
How about the person giving the alms?
Well, it penalizes both the person giving the alms and the person who is using the person with disability to beg. 50,000 naira fine. The law imposes 50,000 naira fine for that act. So you just see that it's a human rights-based law, just to ensure that persons with disabilities are treated the same way as you and I. I mean, we all know that persons with disabilities I have worked with plenty of persons with disabilities, and they are as capable as I am, if not even more capable than I am.
Very true.
So that's idea that they are incapable. That is what the law is trying to just eliminate. So it goes on and on. Even their right to cultural participation, leisure. So there's a provision that I find interesting that says landlords should lease houses to persons with disabilities so long as they can pay their rent.
I'll pause you on that.
Okay.
I'll pause you on that. That's a very interesting aspect of the law that you just brought out. The community of deaf persons or hearing impaired persons, they've been having a major challenge, and that's with renting houses. A lot of landlords, I will use Benin as a reference, do not want to give houses to hearing impaired people because of certain perception they have about them. And so you have a lot of hearing impaired people finding it hard to get accommodation, and that's some sort of discrimination. And these landlords do it because they feel it's their right, it's their house. But the basis on which they are not giving it out is on the basis of the fact that this person is hearing impaired, and it's quite sad.
That's discrimination, clear discrimination. So landlords should be made to be aware of this law and the fact that they can be fined. I know for me, I still argue that 50,000 naira is small. I mean, somebody who has a house probably will be able to pay 50,000 naira. But if they know that they can be, sanctioned, under the law. I think this can change their perception. And then one of the things that I would like to talk about is awareness raising. There's a lot of...
No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. But just to say that if I'm a landlord and I own a house, don't I have a right to give my house to whoever I choose?
You have a right to give your house to whoever you choose, but you do not have a right to discriminate against persons because of their status. So you cannot discriminate, or you cannot refuse to give somebody the house because the person is disabled, has a disability. So that is totally wrong. That is non-discrimination within the ambit of the Edo State law. So yeah, that person can't, apart from even going through the Constitution, because the Constitution, Section 42 of our Constitution prohibits discrimination. So you can go through the constitutional provisions along with the Edo State Persons with Disabilities law to sanction that landlord and to make him realize that, look, you can't, this is not acceptable because you are discriminating on a basis, you know, status, and that is wrong. So yeah.
All right, let's look at the international legal instrument that has bettered every other law concerning persons with disability. That's the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Looking at the Edo State Disability Law, do you think the Edo State Disability Law is in tandem, matches the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability? And are there gaps you think we have in the Edo State Disability Law, and how can those gaps be fixed?
Okay, so I would say that the Edo State law, to some extent, is aligned with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons. I'll call it CRPD because it contains non-discrimination, which is the basis of disability law all over the world. It also contains the right to, I'm talking about the CRPD, contains the right to equality, education, healthcare. So all these things I have mentioned, you know, in that aspect, it is in tandem with the UN CRPD. However, there are gaps. There are some things that the CRPD contains that are not in the Edo State law. And I'll just highlight some of the salient ones. One of them is, when we talk about discrimination, it doesn't contain reasonable accommodation. Edo State law doesn't contain what we term reasonable accommodation. And denial of reasonable accommodation in the CRPD is discrimination. So what
let's not assume our audience knows what reasonable accommodation is.
So reasonable accommodation means that in the society there are modifications and adjustments that are done to ensure that persons with disabilities, you know, can carry out their activities on an equal basis with other people. For instance, if a person with disability, a visually impaired person, gets to work, there should be screen readers and the necessary apps to enable him work. A hearing impaired person in school, for instance, should be, you know, given a sign language interpreter to ensure that access to education, you know, is equalized, you know, so it's on the same basis as other people. Because if you don't provide a sign language interpreter for a person with hearing impairment, for instance, that means you are totally disabling that person. So those are the modifications, and it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It is individualized, so it is based on that person. So if there's a hearing impaired person, the necessary adjustment should be done for the hearing impaired person. If it is a visually impaired person, the same thing. A child or a person with autism, you know, the same thing. So it is individualized. You look at the person's needs and it's done according to, those adjustments are done according to the person's
So the reasonable accommodation, from what you've explained, is not a privilege, it's a right.
It's a right. It's actually non-discrimination. It is discrimination if you don't provide reasonable accommodation under the CRPD. But the Edo State law doesn't have that.
All right, we'll go on a quick break. Don't forget, you're still on to Hitches and Voices on independent television and radio. And our guest is Dr. Awile Ifeanyi. She's been talking on disability rights is human right. And it's been an interesting conversation. And our sign language interpreter so far is Cynthia Godwin Aya. She's been doing a fantastic job for our deaf community. We'll go on a short break now and we'll be right back. Welcome back from that short break. Still on our conversation. Don't forget that this segment of the program is coming to you courtesy of Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, JONAPID, with support from the Ford's Foundation. And we've been having a conversation around disability rights is human right. Doc, what can the Edo State government, civil society, organizations of persons with disability, what can they do to deepen their awareness as far as this law is concerned? And how can we create system to ensure accountability and proper implementation of the law? So this is like a 3-in-1 question. We're talking about awareness, we're talking about implementation, and we're talking about accountability. Don't forget that we have the commission now, which is the Commission on the Edo State Disability Law. So how do we put these 3 concepts together? Implementation, accountability, and creating awareness.
So I'll start with awareness raising. One thing I can say about the Edo State law is that government has not done, because there's no provision on awareness raising, unlike the CRPD that has a provision that the laws should know, there should be awareness raising around the CRPD. So there's not much awareness raising on the part of the government when it comes to this law. I think government can do a lot more when it comes to ensuring public sensitization of the law. Meetings, media, I haven't seen anything put out by the Edo State government on the law sensitizing the public. So the digital space, the media space, should be engaged to ensure that persons with disabilities, the law about persons with disabilities is promoted.
At least thank God for HITCHES and Voices and
yes,
independent television and radio.
I was going to say the DPOs, disability organizations, are doing a fantastic job in that regard, like NAPVID, JONAPID. I know that I have been part of some workshops they've done. I've been part of trainings, but Edo State government school can do trainings. They can sensitize relevant government agencies on the need, about the law and the need to, carry persons with disabilities along, just like they carry us. So I think government can do more when it comes to creating awareness. CSOs and DPOs, workshops, trainings, the same thing. Town hall meetings, monitoring. How do you monitor? That's another thing government needs to do. If you want to ensure that a law is functioning, you have to ensure that you monitor that law to be sure that it's being complied with. So they should work in tandem with the commission, to ensure that, monitoring is being carried out routinely. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, whatever the government decides, but that is one way awareness can be created about the law. Then when you talk about accountability, I always say CSOs and DPOs are the watchdogs of society. And I think that's where they really come in. They should also carry out their community, I don't want to call it community policing, but community engagement. So CSOs, DPOs can engage in communities to see how the law is being implemented in communities. We have schools in communities, in the rural settings and in the urban settings. So the DPOs should be able to go to both the urban settings and the rural settings to ensure that, to find out if the law is being complied with. That's one. And then if people are not being complied with, they help to refer them to the commission, to ensure that, because the commission is the place where you make reports and they are responsible for enforcing the law. So that's one of the ways to hold, to ensure accountability. Then the government too, when it comes to accountability, I know that the commission has been, in quotes, is functioning, but they still have, that's not been inaugurated, but there's still funding issues. There are a lot of issues when it comes to the community. Government has to fund the commission to ensure that it does its work. How will the commission engage in community engagement if they don't have money?
Because that's the argument at the national level now. People feel like the commission at the national level is not properly funded, and as such, they cannot do the much they ought to do. So we don't want this situation whereby in Edo State we'll be facing similar challenges. I guess that's the point you're trying to make. We are already
kind of facing similar challenges, because I'm not sure, I may be wrong, something could have been done today. But I'm not sure that there's adequate funding. And without funding, the commission cannot function.
Well, let's give the government the benefit of that. They just inaugurated the community a few months ago. So I'm sure that's work in progress. And I'm sure they would ensure, what's the need creating the commission if you're not going to fund it in the first place?
I really hope so, because I would like to commend the government. passing the law is one step, because there are many states that have not done that. So I want to say that, oh, they've done a fine step in ensuring that they are creating avenues to ensure that persons with disabilities are included in society. But what I'm saying is they can do further.
Of course.
And so we hope that they do that, they do the needful to ensure that the commission is fully functional, so that, you know, complaints can be laid to the commission, and they can also enforce the provisions of the law. Because the law is, I mean, the law has a lot of sanctions. It has beautiful provisions, but without implementation, which is where the government comes in again. Implementation is manifold. The relevant agencies, are they being mobilized to ensure that issues of disability are being included in their purview? Are they doing that? So it's not just making laws. You have to ensure that everyone is carried along. The community, the society itself, governmental agencies, DPOs, you and I, everybody is carried along so that the law is effective, because we don't want laws that are not effective. So that is, for accountability's sake, you must involve people. Town hall meetings, you engage media, all sorts of, I mean, now it's so easy to create awareness on social media. So why not do that? The governments have their TikTok handles and Twitter handles and what's on. Why not use it to create awareness about persons with disabilities and the rights of persons with disabilities? Same thing goes for DPOs and CSOs as well. You can use your different media handles, programs to create awareness. And then where there's no compliance, write letters, petitions. I mean, I'm talking about DPOs, you know, questioning why certain issues have not been handled. Thank you.
Protest.
Everything. I mean, advocacy. I don't like protest, because most times protests get out of hand.
So that was on the lighter side.
I would encourage protest, but you can do advocacy works.
But some people argue that that's what the government listens to.
Well, hooligans usually take over protests, you know. So I prefer advocacy works, where you're holding your banners and you're just walking, and while you're holding your banners, you're engaging people and you're telling them about, oh, look at, this is what we are doing, this is why we are protesting. The law says so and so, and we are not. That's it. So advocacy works. And
the beautiful thing is that in Edo State here, it was advocacy that brought us to where we are now. Yes. A lot of advocacy brought about the Edo State disability law. But in 30 seconds, how can persons with disability in Edo State, how can we empower them to take advantage of the Edo State disability law? Because you can have the law, but if you don't attempt to engage the law, to test the law might just be there.
So I think the first thing is, do they even know about the law? So they should be educated about the law. They should be sensitized about the law. That there's a law for you that creates, you know, avenues for you to protest. Then they should be told about the commission, because it follows that when they know about the law, they know about the commission, and they are told the processes, the procedures, because the commission has processes. You come and lay complaints, and then they will come and investigate. So
but as an individual, I can test the law by maybe.
Oh yes, I was going to that, and then I was going to say you can go to court. There are legal aid offices at the Ministry of Justice. You can engage the legal aid office. I remember that the last time I went for a training with Jonah Pid, I saw the legal aid. Yes. Yeah, so you can engage them. So those are the ways you can, persons with disabilities in Edo State can be sensitized about their law and be carried along when it comes to their rights as contained in the law.
What a very, very fantastic conversation with our guest in the studio, Dr. Awele Ofuani from the Faculty of Law, University of Benin. She did justice to our topic today, disability rights is human right. Don't forget, Hitches and Voices came to you courtesy of Network for the Advancement of Persons with Disability, NABID. You can follow us on our various social media platforms, or you could visit us at our secretariat, number 34 Arosa Street, off Sokbamba Road, here in Benin City. So we'll do this again next week. My name is Kingsley Okoje, saying, spot the hitch and be a voice. Goodbye.